The White House announces sanctions on Russia's two biggest oil companies and condemns Moscow for refusing to end its, quote, senseless war in Ukraine. President Trump said the goal is to make all sides more willing to negotiate.
They're massive sanctions. It's sanctions on oil. The two biggest oil companies, among the biggest in the world, but they're Russian. They do a lot of oil. And hopefully it'll push... hopefully he'll become reasonable, and hopefully Zelensky will be reasonable too.
And this morning, the European Union has also agreed on a new raft of sanctions for Russia. CBS News foreign correspondent Remi Inocencio joins us from London with more on all of this. Good morning, Remi. What more can you tell us about these sanctions and the impact they'll have? We heard President Trump there say that hopefully it pressures Putin to bring his war to an end.
Yeah, well, that's the hope, Errol, and good morning. This is the first time in President Trump's second term that he's slapping sanctions on Russia related to its war effort in Ukraine. And the Treasury Department says that the focus is to, in their words, degrade the Kremlin's ability to raise revenue for its war machine. And that money, a lot of it at least, comes from oil sales hitting Russia's two biggest oil giants, Rosneft and Lukoil. Now, if you want to give a bit of a parallel here, the U.S.'s two biggest oil companies are ExxonMobil and Chevron together. So it would be something similar if Russia wanted to do something like that. But Trump, he expressed a lot of frustration. We heard him just now with Putin at the Oval yesterday. Here he is again.
Every time I speak with Vladimir, I have good conversations, and then they don't go anywhere. They just don't go anywhere.
So now these sanctions with Rosneft, its CEO is a close ally of Putin, and with the other company, Lukoil, you might have actually seen gas stations in the United States there. It's more active internationally than Rosneft, and these sanctions basically block Americans or American entities from dealing whatsoever with anyone at those Russian oil majors and to any companies that actually are owned by them over 50%. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent encouraged allies to join in. And, I mean, you just mentioned it. The EU has actually done that in the past hour. Its nations, 27 of them, targeted Russia's so-called shadow fleet, bringing oil and natural gas out of Russia, sort of on the sly to sell for money. The EU is also going to try to limit the movement of Russian diplomats in the zone. Zelensky also chiming in. He says he's very happy about this.
And, Remi, as you know, Russia has ways to get around this, as you've just mentioned. What has been the official response from Moscow?
Sure. Aggression. Russia's former president, Dmitry Medvedev, has come out swinging. No surprise, though. He's usually the attack dog for Putin. He said that these sanctions are an act of war, that Washington is on the warpath, and that the U.S. Here is, quote, our enemy. No other reaction from the political side of things, but in terms of real actions, Russia just might try to lean harder on China and India to buy more oil, perhaps lowering the price even more. But right now, the price of oil is up by about 7% over the past 2 days because of all this.
All right, Remi Inocencio with the latest from London. Thanks, Remi. President Trump is imposing harsh new sanctions on Russia's two largest oil companies, ramping up pressure on Russian President Putin to end his war in Ukraine. Last night on the CBS Evening News, Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan explained what might be behind this latest change in tone from the White House.
Two European officials tell me that Trump now has some realization that Vladimir Putin needs to be pushed in order to come to that negotiating table, and that he cannot demolish a kindergarten and pay zero cost for it.
CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes joins us now with more. Nancy, good morning. Margaret mentioned the kindergarten. That was the Russian strike in Ukraine in recent days. So how might these sanctions impact Russia? Will it really be enough to pressure the country to end its war?
I don't know that it'll be enough to suddenly transform Putin's position on this war, but it is meant to signal that actually President Trump is not simply going to allow Putin to, on one hand, claim that he wants peace, and then on the other hand, balk at some of the steps that he would need to take in order to achieve that peace. And while President Trump himself has kind of gone back and forth when it comes to Putin and his sincerity when he talks about wanting to end this war, those around President Trump seem to have a more consistent view of Putin, which is that he needs to be coerced into laying down arms after 3.5 years of this invasion.